Formula One CEO Stefano Domenicali has recently voiced profound concerns regarding Italy's continued presence on the sport's global calendar, stirring unease about the potential disappearance of one of the country's two iconic Grand Prix races, either the Emilia-Romagna GP at Imola or the legendary Italian GP held at Monza. As Formula One relentlessly expands its global footprint in pursuit of untapped commercial opportunities, traditional venues are facing unprecedented pressure. Emerging markets like Thailand and South Africa have become formidable candidates vying for a prestigious spot on the championship calendar, according to Domenicali himself. This relentless drive toward globalization, while promising in terms of financial growth and audience diversification, comes with a heavy price: the erosion of tradition. And Italy, paradoxically one of the very cradles of motorsport, could find itself paying that price. In recent months, a growing number of public statements, press conferences, and behind-the-scenes briefings have hinted at a looming reality, one where the dual Italian races may no longer be tenable. The continued presence of both Imola and Monza is increasingly seen as unsustainable in the long run. The squeeze is coming from all sides: budget constraints, political priorities, and the sheer logistics of organizing a truly global calendar. Meanwhile, the commercial arm of Formula One is aggressively targeting new frontiers in Asia and Africa, where governments are offering massive investments and fan engagement is on the rise. Despite Italy's deep historical roots in racing, from the Tifosi to Ferrari's sacred legacy, the ground is shifting under its feet. Domenicali, who was born and raised near Imola, finds himself caught in a painful paradox. His professional role demands neutrality and forward-looking vision, yet his personal identity is intimately bound to the circuits under threat. In a recent press event, he didn't shy away from addressing the uncomfortable truth: the sport simply doesn't have the bandwidth to accommodate every track that wants in. While praising the enthusiasm, financial commitment, and modern infrastructure being proposed by nations like Thailand and Rwanda, Domenicali admitted that choices will have to be made, and those choices might not favor tradition. "We're running out of space," he remarked candidly, "and something will inevitably have to give." Sadly, that something could be an Italian Grand Prix. As painful as the thought may be, Domenicali acknowledged that Formula One must evolve to remain relevant in a rapidly changing world. With fan bases exploding across continents and governments in emerging markets eager to leverage the sport as a symbol of progress and modernity, the notion of hosting two Grands Prix in a single European country is becoming harder to justify. "It's a tough pill to swallow," he said, "especially for those of us who grew up immersed in the soul of Italian racing. But the sport is moving forward, and if we want Formula One to be truly competitive and inclusive on a global scale, we need to be willing to make hard decisions, even when they hurt." Back in 2020, when the world stood still at the height of the COVID-19 pandemic, it was Stefano Domenicali, now CEO of Formula One, who played a pivotal role in resurrecting Imola, breathing life into the sport when it was on the verge of losing an entire season. Faced with strict travel bans and health restrictions, Formula One was scrambling to patch together a viable calendar. Traditional venues were off-limits, and desperation loomed. But Italy, steeped in racing heritage, rose to the occasion, not with one, but two top-tier Grands Prix. The return of Imola was hailed as a symbol of resilience, a love letter to tradition in a time of uncertainty. Yet just a few years later, that very triumph is hanging by a thread, ironically threatened by the same forces of modernization that once offered the sport a lifeline. What's becoming increasingly evident is that the DNA of Formula One is undergoing a radical transformation, shaped less by passion and prestige and more by economics and international investment. Governments across Southeast Asia and Africa are now offering eye-watering sums to build futuristic circuits, with state-of-the-art infrastructure and generous financial incentives to boot. In comparison, heritage circuits, many located in Europe, are struggling to keep up. It's no longer just about legacy. It's about profit, exposure, and strategic geopolitical partnerships. Domenicali, a native of Imola himself, has not minced words about the implications. He openly acknowledges the passion of the Italian fans, arguably among the most fervent on earth. He speaks with emotion about the atmosphere at Monza, particularly when a Ferrari crosses the finish line in first place. The thunderous roar of the tifosi, he says, is unlike anything else in motorsport. But even those goosebump-inducing moments aren't immune to financial reality. Hosting a Grand Prix is an enormous fiscal undertaking, and it's becoming increasingly unsustainable for any country to do it twice a year, especially with so many others willing to pay for just one shot. Italy, as Domenicali pointed out, may currently enjoy the rare privilege of 2 races on the calendar, but that distinction comes with immense financial strain, political coordination, and the scrutiny of tight national and regional budgets. It's getting harder and harder to justify the cost, Domenicali admitted, especially when other nations are showing up with open wallets and bold visions. Still, he was quick to clarify that this doesn't spell the end of Italy's presence in the sport. "We are not abandoning Italy," he reassured. "It's a fundamental part of who we are. But we also have to acknowledge the realities of a world that's rapidly shifting." According to Domenicali, Formula One is now entering a stage where compromise will be essential. Passion alone can no longer guarantee permanence. The situation surrounding Imola and Monza has become a microcosm of a larger existential battle within the sport, a tug-of-war between legacy and progress, sentiment and strategy. As F1 prepares to chart new terrain across continents, it does so while carrying the emotional weight of its storied past. The decisions looming in the months ahead won't just affect 2 circuits in northern Italy. They will help define the very soul of the sport. And for Domenicali, who now finds himself in a position where personal loyalties collide with global duty, the stakes are deeply personal. "From a human perspective, this is incredibly difficult," he confessed. "But I have to wear the global hat now. I'm fielding increasing requests from countries across the globe, nations with growing economies and enormous ambition, who see Formula One not just as a sport, but as a vehicle for growth, visibility, and national prestige." He made a point to remind the world that in 2020, during one of the darkest chapters in modern memory, it was Imola that stepped up. It was Imola that rallied, that mobilized its people and resources to keep the championship alive. The entire city turned into a motorsport hub overnight. That collective act of loyalty, of urgency wrapped in tradition, will never be forgotten. But warm memories may not be enough to preserve a race in today's hyper-competitive environment. Meanwhile, other warning signs are emerging across Europe. Spain, for example, is grappling with its own version of this dilemma. With Madrid officially slated to join the F1 calendar, the Spanish government has begun to question whether the country can feasibly host 2 races annually. The long-standing race in Barcelona, once seen as a cornerstone of the European leg, is now facing the very real threat of being rotated or removed entirely. Even Zandvoort in the Netherlands, rejuvenated by the meteoric rise of Max Verstappen, has quietly stepped away from future calendars. It's a sobering reminder that no circuit, no matter how beloved, is immune to the shifting winds of modern motorsport. What we're witnessing is nothing short of a tectonic shift in Formula One's identity. The sport that once revolved around classic tracks and its European stronghold is evolving into something much larger, something driven by economic might and geopolitical calculus. Circuits like Imola, etched into the very fabric of F1 through decades of unforgettable duels and glorious victories, are suddenly in jeopardy. The notion that Imola could vanish from the calendar would have been unthinkable just a decade ago. Today, it's a chilling possibility. A major factor driving this transformation is the growing popularity of street circuits. Governments are pushing hard to bring F1 into city centers, using the sport as a billboard for tourism and modernization. Nations like Thailand and Rwanda haven't just expressed casual interest, they've gained serious traction. Their bids are backed by political will, financial backing, and, crucially, powerful allies inside the paddock. Thai driver Alex Albon has emerged as a de facto ambassador for Southeast Asian motorsport, lending his support to his nation's effort to land a Grand Prix. Meanwhile, 7-time world champion Lewis Hamilton has long advocated for the sport's return to Africa, calling its absence from the continent not just regrettable, but unjustifiable for a championship that prides itself on global reach. And here lies the uncomfortable truth. The current calendar is already jam-packed with 24 races. Adding new locations means old ones must fall off. There's no way around it. Between budget constraints, broadcast rights, travel logistics, and the physical toll on teams and drivers, infinite expansion isn't an option. And that's why even sacred venues like Monza or Imola may one day pay the price of Formula One's unrelenting march toward worldwide saturation. Domenicali, standing at the center of it all, is visibly torn. The Imola-born executive now finds himself as the face of this global transformation, torn between loyalty to his roots and the responsibilities of leading a sport into uncharted territory. "It's incredibly hard on a personal level," he admitted. "But I'm in a position now where I have to make decisions based on the bigger picture." The soul of the sport is at a crossroads. And the question no longer revolves around whether Italy will retain both of its races. The deeper question is whether Formula One, in its race for expansion, can preserve the emotional connections that made it a global phenomenon in the first place. Because no amount of high-tech infrastructure or record-breaking viewership can replace the thunder of the Tifosi, the shadows of Tamburello, or the historic weight of a Ferrari victory in Monza. Balancing economic ambition with the sport's romantic core may well be the defining challenge of Formula One in the decade ahead. Fernando Alonso has never been one to mince his words, and when it comes to the increasingly claustrophobic nature of modern Formula One street circuits, his skepticism has been loud and clear. He's repeatedly warned that today's machines, wide, heavy, and cumbersome, are fundamentally ill-suited for the razor-thin margins of tight, temporary urban tracks. Even with the promise of slimmer, more agile cars coming in 2026, Alonso remains unconvinced that such circuit designs will ever truly complement the essence of Formula One. As the two-time world champion put it, echoing a sentiment once sarcastically quipped by Sebastian Vettel, "It's hard to focus on racing when you're threading a needle at 150 kilometers per hour with a concrete wall brushing your front wing." And yet, despite these technical and philosophical concerns, the momentum for new urban Grand Prix continues to build, particularly in places far from Formula One's traditional heartlands. Rwanda, of all nations, has emerged as one of the most ambitious suitors. According to Stefano Domenicali, the push from Kigali isn't merely a diplomatic gesture or a PR stunt. It's a full-blown national endeavor, spearheaded with passion and precision by President Paul Kagame himself. "This isn't just about wanting a race," Domenicali explained. "The president has a vision, not just to bring Formula One to Rwanda, but to build an entire motorsport ecosystem around it. It's strategic, it's long-term, and it's deeply committed." Domenicali confirmed that behind closed doors, work is already accelerating. Meetings have intensified. Infrastructure assessments are underway. "There's a lot of energy being poured into this," he said. "And I can promise you, we're doing everything we can on our side to help make it happen. Hopefully, we'll have something official to announce in the near future." This African dream has found an outspoken champion in none other than Lewis Hamilton. The seven-time world champion has long been an advocate for diversity and representation in the sport, and the idea of returning Formula One to the African continent is, for him, both a cultural landmark and a moral imperative. Hamilton has called it necessary, overdue, and long ignored. But irony now clouds that vision. With Hamilton having recently signed with Ferrari, the potential introduction of new races, particularly one in Africa, could come at a painful cost. The removal or rotation of an existing Italian Grand Prix, perhaps even at Imola, a circuit that lies deep within Ferrari's spiritual geography. Would Hamilton still push with the same intensity for a Kigalian race if it meant sacrificing a home event for his new team? The answer is unclear. But it's a potential conflict of loyalty and ideology that could erupt in the open soon enough. Meanwhile, the clock is ticking on Imola. Its current contract expires in 2025. Monza is locked in until 2031, but even that long-term deal doesn't guarantee immunity. Commercial pressures, shifting political tides, and the sheer hunger from emerging nations have left all venues, no matter how sacred, exposed to rotation, downsizing, or outright elimination. Thailand, too, is circling. The Southeast Asian nation has been knocking on Formula One's door for years, and its case is only getting stronger. The rise of Alex Albon, especially since his resurgence with Williams and his recurring appearances in Netflix's Drive to Survive, has elevated Thailand's visibility within the global F1 community. Bangkok is now seriously being considered as a host city, and discussions with Domenicali and his executive team have intensified. Yes, Thailand's internal political turbulence raises eyebrows. But not enough, it seems, to derail the vision. It was a real pleasure sitting down with Prime Minister Shinawatra and his delegation, Domenicali said following a recent summit. Their roadmap for a Grand Prix in Bangkok is bold, thoughtful, and very exciting. We're optimistic that this dialogue will move toward a tangible outcome in the months ahead. So here we are, once again on the verge of a seismic shift in the world of Formula One. Historic circuits are hanging by a thread. New challengers are knocking louder than ever. And the ultimate question that looms isn't just what the calendar will look like, but who is willing to spend, who is prepared to host, and ultimately, who can deliver a spectacle worthy of the fastest, most prestigious motorsport on Earth. One of the most compelling evolutions in recent years has been Formula One's conscious decision to look outward, to actively explore regions that represent the future rather than clinging solely to its European heritage. The sport has pivoted dramatically, chasing new markets, new demographics, and untapped commercial opportunities. From Asia to the Middle East, from the neon blaze of Las Vegas to the emerging blueprints in Kigali and Bangkok, Formula One is no longer a Eurocentric affair. It's now a sprawling global phenomenon. And therein lies both its greatest strength and its most urgent dilemma. As Domenicali and other senior executives have acknowledged, interest is pouring in from every corner of the world. European venues are still in the mix, yes, but the fervor is most palpable in Africa, Southeast Asia, and Latin America, where nations are eager to stake their claim on the world stage. But this global enthusiasm has its price. There are only so many weekends in a year. Every new edition means another must be cut, or at least rotated out. This is the heart of the current identity crisis in Formula One. How much of the sports soul are we willing to trade for expansion? Should we replace legendary venues like Imola, sanctuaries of racing tradition, with newer, shinier additions that offer more money but less history? Some argue for a balance, honoring the sport's legacy while adapting for the future. Others warn that the scales are already tipping too far toward commerce and spectacle over character and substance. It's at this crossroads where teams may need to step in, not just through boardroom discussions or FIA briefings, but through public dialogue. The paddock has a voice. And if it demands that the essence of the sport be preserved, that voice could become a force for realignment. Because for all the innovation and expansion, it's the shared history, the emotional connection to places like Monza and Imola, that binds the fans to the sport at its core. Some changes may be easier to swallow. Fernando Alonso, for instance, may be nearing the twilight of his storied career. His retirement, while notable, won't rock the sport to its foundation. He's a veteran whose legacy is secure. But Max Verstappen? That's a different story entirely. When a reigning world champion in his prime begins to openly question whether he even wants to continue, warning that a bloated, relentless calendar might drive him away, that's a blaring alarm. Verstappen has been candid. Racing doesn't define his life. He wants to spend time with family, explore other challenges like Le Mans, and simply breathe. He won't hesitate to walk away if the calendar becomes a soul-sapping grind. George Russell has echoed similar concerns, from a different perspective. His worry lies not just with the drivers, but with the countless unsung heroes behind the scenes. Engineers, logistics teams, mechanics, the backbone of the paddock. These are the individuals who sacrifice everything to keep the machine running across continents, climate zones, and time shifts. The triple-header at the end of the season, Brazil, Las Vegas, Abu Dhabi, is a logistical nightmare. 3 continents. 3 extreme weather systems. 3 time zones. All in the span of 3 weeks. For fans, it's a feast. 4 teams, it's brutal. And it raises ethical questions about the sport's sustainability goals. Formula One loves to tout its eco-friendly ambitions. But how serious can those claims be when thousands of personnel and tons of equipment are flown across the globe week after week? Perhaps this is where the sport's expansion hits a wall, not a financial one, but a human one. An ethical one. Which brings us full circle to Imola. A track woven into the emotional tapestry of Formula One, now staring down the possibility of exclusion, or best-case scenario, rotational status. Is that an acceptable price for progress? Or are we watching something priceless slowly slip through our fingers? Then there's the promise of new beginnings. Kigali, Bangkok, cities on the verge of becoming the next global motorsport hotspots. The potential is real. Massive audiences, passionate governments, and a chance to awaken fan bases that have long been ignored. Hamilton continues to back the African push, calling it a symbolic priority. Under Kagame, Rwanda is leading that charge. According to Domenicali, Kagame's vision isn't just ambitious, it's feasible, grounded, and already gaining traction. But again, tension simmers. Can even Hamilton reconcile his ideals with the needs of Ferrari, especially if it means sacrificing one of the team's ancestral circuits? And what about Thailand? With Albon's rising star and Bangkok's colorful urban energy, the nation looks poised for inclusion. Talks with Prime Minister Shinawatra are underway, and despite lingering concerns about political instability, the momentum feels undeniable. Domenicali concluded with optimism. It was an honor to sit down with Prime Minister Shinawatra and his team. Bangkok presents an electric, vibrant possibility. And we're excited about where these discussions are heading. So we return to the central dilemma. Is Formula One evolving or unraveling? Can it grow without losing its soul? And crucially, do cities like Kigali and Bangkok have what it takes, not just in terms of budget or infrastructure, but in spirit, atmosphere, and culture, to carry the torch? Let us know what you think in the comments. And while you're here, don't miss the next video on your screen. It all ties together, and trust us, you won't want to miss it.